Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're taking a deep dive into a horse breed that, honestly, looks like it gallops straight out of a fairy tale. You know the ones, right?
Yeah.
With the flowing manes and just this really dramatic presence. We're talking about the majestic Frisian.
Oh, yeah. Their striking charisma just absolutely captures your attention. And, you've probably seen them stealing scenes in Hollywood or turning heads in the show ring. They are, instantly recognizable.
Totally. And what's truly fascinating here, looking at the sources shared with us, is how far back their story goes. This isn't some recent creation. These horses have a long, rich history originating from the Friesland region of the Netherlands, tracing all the way back to, well, war horses ridden by medieval knights.
That lineage is impressive, for sure. But their journey isn't just one of ancient heritage and modern global popularity. Despite that long history, they faced a significant challenge: rampant crossbreeding over centuries, and then later, particularly intense inbreeding. This led to a really serious brush with extinction in the 20th century. And that directly contributed to some specific health challenges we see, commonly in the breed today.
Right. So our mission for this deep dive is to take these sources and really dig into the history that shaped them, understand those iconic characteristics that make them stand out, explore the health considerations that are kind of linked to their genetics and history, and then look at the unique care and nutritional needs required to keep these incredible horses thriving.
Exactly. It's a blend of, ancient history, the genetic realities shaped by that history, and then the modern care practices needed as a result.
Okay, let's start right at the very beginning then with their history. How far back do these sources say the Frisian type existed?
Well, the illustrations we have, the ones depicting horses that are clearly recognizable as Frisians, they date back to the 11th century. But military records actually suggest troops from Friesland were riding similar native horses much, much earlier, maybe starting in the 4th century.
The 4th century? Wow.
I think late Roman Empire era.
That's incredible endurance for a distinct type. And they weren't just isolated to Friesland, were they? The sources mention external influences coming in.
They did. Arabian blood was introduced to the local Frisian horses during the Middle Ages, probably by returning crusaders. Then later, in the 16th and 17th centuries, Andalusian horses imported from Spain also contributed to the type.
Bringing in some of that elegance, maybe? That energy?
Probably. But what's really interesting from the sources is their unique genetic standing today, despite those influences.
How so?
Well, genetic studies highlighted in the sources show the modern Frisian is actually quite distinct genetically. They're largely isolated from other Dutch horse populations, and notably, unlike a lot of popular European riding breeds developed over the last few centuries, they do not descend from horses with English thoroughbred blood.
Huh. That really sets them apart right there among modern sport horse types. So they developed more as a land race initially. Can you explain what that means in this context?
Sure. It means they evolved primarily as a land race, basically, a type shaped by their local environment, the work they did, and the culture of the people in Friesland over centuries, rather than through purely strict, formal, selective breeding, at least not initially. Formal recognition as a specific breed, with a stud book, that only came much later, in 1879.
Gotcha. So what were these ancient horses actually doing for all those centuries before they were officially a breed? What were their historic uses mentioned in the sources?
Well, they started as versatile, all-around working and riding horses for the people of Friesland. Simple enough. But they became truly famous as powerful, agile war mounts for medieval knights. You see early illustrations often showing knights on horses that look a lot like modern Frisians. Historians even speculate that figures like William the Conqueror might have ridden a Frisian type in battle. And the sources seem more certain that Hungarian King Louis II specifically used them.
From war horses, it seems they transitioned to more elegant roles then.
Exactly. As warfare changed, European nobility frequently chose Frisians as elegant coach horses. They were prized for their presence and that movement, pulling carriages. Then, in the 18th and 19th centuries, they became very popular as fast-trotting and harness horses across Europe.
But despite all that popularity, the sources detail a really precarious moment for the breed, like a severe decline and near extinction.
It was a stark decline, yeah, quite tragic, really. They sort of fell out of fashion in the late 19th century as tastes changed and, mechanized transport increased. By 1902, the situation was dire. There were tragically only 15 approved Frisian stallions remaining in Friesland itself.
Just 15. That's an incredibly small genetic pool to rebuild from. How did they bounce back from that?
Well, it's a story of survival and reintroduction, really. Dutch settlers had actually imported large numbers to North America earlier, but unfortunately much of that population was crossbred, kind of diluting the purebred lines on the continent. The reintroduction of purebreds from Friesland in the 1970s really helped bring them back into prominence globally. That led to their current popularity in recreational riding, driving, and performance disciplines worldwide.
And this is where the breed registry becomes absolutely crucial, right? For maintaining what was saved and protecting the breed's identity.
It is. The original and authoritative registry is the KFPS in the Netherlands that stands for the Royal Association of the Friesian Horse Stetboek, the one established back in 1879. And the FSANET in North America is their exclusive affiliate, upholding the exact same strict standards for registration.
And these standards are quite rigorous if you want a horse registered as a purebred Friesian, aren't they?
Oh, very much so. To be registered in the main stud book, a horse has to be born from a dam already registered there and sired by a KFPS-approved stallion. And these approved stallions undergo really rigorous evaluation and testing, not just on their looks, but on performance, temperament, everything. It's to ensure they meet the high breed standards and can positively contribute to the health and quality of the gene pool.
And they have those famous inspections where horses are presented.
Yes, the KFPS and FENA conduct regular inspections. Horses are assessed based on conformation, movement, and overall breed characteristics against the strict standard. It's how they identify horses that truly exemplify the breed and determine suitability for breeding or advancement within the stud book.
Okay, let's talk about what makes them so instantly recognizable, those iconic breed characteristics.
You really do know one when you see one, don't you? It's that elegant, powerful look combined with their, well, presence and charisma.
Starting with size, what's the typical height range? Are they huge?
Most adult Friesians average between 15.2 to 16 hands high. The stud book has minimum height requirements. Mares and geldings must be at least 15 hands, and stallions must reach at least 15.3 hands by 4 years old. Some individuals do grow taller, maybe up to 17 hands, but that's less common.
And their conformation is quite specific, contributing to that look and movement.
Right. The sources describe an expressive head, typically with small ears, large, kind eyes, and wide nostrils. That head attaches gracefully to a high-set, arched, large, and well-muscled neck. They have prominent withers, muscular backs and loins, and a broad, muscular, sloping croup. The overall picture is sort of well-balanced, maybe a bit rectangular in appearance, strong chest, correct legs, sound hooves too.
And the way they move is a huge part of that iconic look.
Absolutely. Their gaits are described as light-footed and notably elevated. Think good stride length, excellent joint flexion, particularly in the hocks, and power generated strongly from the hindquarters. That natural high-stepping action is a definite hallmark.
Now, the color. This is maybe their most famous characteristic, and in the modern breed, it's non-negotiable, isn't it?
Correct. Black is the only recognized coat color in the modern KFTS registered breed. While sources note that, grays and bays did occur way back in their early history, today only a small white star on the forehead is permitted. No other white markings on the body or legs are allowed.
And of course, you simply cannot talk about a Friesian without mentioning the hair.
Ah, yes, the copious hair.
Yeah.
Long and heavy black manes and tails are distinctive for sure, and that thick fetlock feathering around their lower legs is another absolute key feature. They definitely require some dedication to maintain properly, though.
They look impressive, but what about their personalities? What are their temperaments like? Are they difficult?
Not usually, no. The sources consistently describe them as having a genuine character and a strong work ethic. They possess excellent stamina and energy, which you need for performance, but they're generally not spooky or high-strung. They're also known for being quite intelligent and quick learners.
So not just a pretty face, but trainable and willing partners.
Exactly. They're generally known for being friendly and easygoing, which makes them suitable for a wide range of riders, from pleasure riders to competitors. Of course, like any horse, individual personalities will vary,
Sure. Given their stunning looks, movement, and temperament, what disciplines do you typically see Friesians excelling in today, according to the sources?
Well, their elegance makes them very popular show horses, naturally. They do particularly well in harness shows and driving disciplines, really leveraging that natural high-action trot and powerful pulling ability inherited from their history as coach horses.
Right. Makes sense. And in riding disciplines?
Dressage is probably the most popular riding discipline for them. While, warm bloods might dominate the very elite levels of modern dressage, Friesians are very competitive and enjoyed by riders at all levels, performing well in tests. They're also used for pleasure riding, some light farm work, and as we mentioned, you see them frequently in film and television. They have that look.
They are quite versatile then. Okay, now, switching gears a bit to a more challenging aspect, the health considerations. The sources strongly link certain health problems to that small founding population we discussed earlier.
Yeah, this is where that history directly impacts the present reality for the breed. Descending from such a limited group, especially after that brush with extinction where the population bottlenecked significantly, it led to a high degree of inbreeding. The sources point to this as the root cause of several genetic health problems seen in the breed today.
Okay, let's talk about some of these specific genetic diseases mentioned. Dwarfism is one.
Yes, dwarfism is one of the serious genetic issues. It's described as an autosomal recessive disorder, meaning a foal needs to inherit a copy of the faulty gene mutation from both parents to be affected. Affected horses have a broad chest, shortened stature, and abnormally short limbs relative to their body size. You can usually tell.
And dwarfism isn't just about size, right? It comes with other physical issues.
It does. Dwarf Friesians often have associated problems like tendon laxity and fetlock hyperextension. This means their tendons and ligaments can be too loose, leading to excessive hypermobility in the lower legs. That can cause gait abnormalities and a higher risk of soft tissue injuries. However, the source does note that affected horses can sometimes live average lifespans with appropriate supportive care.
Is there a test for it?
Yes, thankfully. A DNA test is available, which is a critical tool for breeders to identify carriers and avoid producing affected foals.
Okay. Another very serious genetic condition mentioned is hydrocephalus.
Hydrocephalus is also described as an autosomal recessive disorder again, needing that gene mutation from both parents. This involves an excessive accumulation of fluid in the brain, causing severe head distension. It frequently results in stillbirth or difficult deliveries, dystocia. Foals born alive typically have severe neurological issues and are unfortunately usually euthanized shortly after birth.
That sounds awful. Is there a test for that too?
Yes. A DNA test is also available for this specific gene mutation, allowing breeders to test their horses and manage breeding decisions responsibly.
It sounds like managing these genetic risks is a major focus for responsible breeders then.
It has to be.
The sources also mention that connective tissue abnormalities seem common in the breed more broadly, not just specifically linked to dwarfism.
They are, yeah. And many other disorders affecting Friesians are thought to be linked to underlying connective tissue issues. Researchers in the sources believe that the selection for those high-stepping gaits over generations, and perhaps inadvertently selecting for increased tendon or ligament laxity to achieve that movement, may have contributed to these issues becoming more prevalent in the breed.
And there's research showing differences at a biological level, like actual physical differences.
Yes, one study mentioned found that Friesians seem to have a higher rate of collagen degradation compared to other breeds. Collagen is a major component of connective tissue, so this predisposition to breakdown seems to play a role in the prevalence of these related disorders.
Okay, so what are some specific health problems linked to these connective tissue issues, according to the sources?
Megaesophagus is one that is directly linked. This is an enlargement and reduced motility of the esophagus, basically. The tube that carries food to the stomach doesn't move food along properly. This makes swallowing difficult and can lead to weight loss, repeated choking incidents, and a risk of aspiration pneumonia if food or liquid is inhaled into the lungs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the source directly links this condition in Friesians to suspected collagen abnormalities, causing chronic dilation and lack of muscle tone in the esophageal wall.
That sounds incredibly serious and debilitating. And then there's the risk of aortic rupture.
Also associated with collagen disorders. This is a catastrophic event involving the rupture of the aorta, the largest artery in the body, which leads to sudden death. It's devastating because it's often completely sudden. However, the sources note that some horses might show subtle prior signs. Things like recurrent colic, an increased resting heart rate, maybe unexplained peripheral swelling, or a higher than normal body temperature.
So watch for those subtle signs.
Exactly. If you see those signs, contacting a vet immediately is absolutely critical.
Are there other health problems mentioned in the sources that aren't necessarily linked to connective tissue but are common in the breed?
Yes, skin disorders are quite common. Their beautiful, thick, fetlock feathering, while distinctive, makes them prone to chronic pastern dermatitis, often called mud fever, especially in wet conditions. Studies also show a significantly high incidence, around 18% of insect bite hypersensitivity, commonly known as sweet itch. That's an allergic reaction to insect bites, usually midges.
18% is pretty high for sweet itch. That's tough to manage. Any issues related to reproduction?
Frisian mares have a very high incidence of retained placenta after foaling. The source puts this incidence at up to 54% of births in Frisian mares, which is vastly higher compared to less than 10% in the general equine population. So it requires really careful monitoring and management after foaling.
Wow, over half in some cases. And what about metabolic issues? Are they prone to things like equine metabolic syndrome, EMS?
The sources mention that although formal research specifically on EMS in Friesians is maybe limited, veterinarians working with the breed recognize a risk. Reports of hyperinsulinemic Friesians indicating issues with insulin regulation do exist. The predisposition is thought to stem partly from their breed evolution in a harsher environment where they needed to be efficient users of calories, easy keepers, and also potentially the historical Arabian and Andalusian influence.
And EMS can lead to obesity and a high risk of laminitis, right?
And exactly, big risks.
So it's really important for owners to be able to distinguish between a crusty neck caused by abnormal fat storage, which is a sign of potential EMS, and their natural muscular arched neck shape. That could be tricky.
That distinction is absolutely important for owners monitoring their horse's body condition. You need to learn what's fat and what's just their natural build.
So given these predispositions and specific health risks, what does proper care and management look like for a Friesian, according to the sources? It sounds like a lot.
Well, the key takeaway from the material is that despite these risks, Friesians can absolutely live healthy, productive, and fulfilling lives. But it requires proper, tailored care and a proactive approach. You can't just treat them like any other horse.
Like working closely with a whole team of equine professionals, vet, farrier, etc.?
Precisely. A preventative wellness plan is crucial. This means regular vet checkups for early detection of potential issues, staying on top of vaccine schedules, getting yearly dental exams, or more often for seniors, and implementing strategic parasite control based on fecal counts, not just guessing.
And farrier care was specifically highlighted as being extra important for this breed. Why is that?
It was. Because of their predisposition to connective tissue problems and potential musculoskeletal strain, quality farrier care is essential. Proper, regular hoof trimming and potentially corrective shoes can help maintain soundness and prevent undue stress on those crucial tendons, ligaments, and joints. It's foundational.
What about exercise and turnout? Is that emphasized? Stuck in a stall all day probably isn't good.
No, definitely not. Free exercise during turnout is strongly recommended. It's important for maintaining healthy bones and connective tissue. The sources suggest minimizing stall confinement and maximizing turnout time to allow natural movement, reduce stress, and support overall well-being. Let them be horses.
And grooming, of course, is a major commitment with all that hair.
It is. That beautiful long hair requires more intense and regular routines than your average horse. Crucially, keeping those thick fetlock feathers dry and clean is vital to prevent moisture buildup and reduce the risk of that chronic pastern dermatitis or mud fever we mentioned. That takes effort.
You also brought up adjusting training programs. How does that connect to their health profile?
Yeah, the sources cite research suggesting Friesians may fatigue faster or perhaps have different metabolic profiles compared to some other breeds. So working with a trainer and vet to develop an appropriate training program, adjusting workload, allowing for adequate rest, it's all just wise management. It's also important for owners to regularly monitor their horse for any signs of poor performance or potential heart problems, like an abnormal heart rate, which could link back to that aortic rupture risk we discussed. Keep an eye out.
Okay, let's move on to nutrition, which is obviously closely tied to overall health and managing conditions like that EMS risk.
Absolutely. A balanced diet is fundamental for a Friesian's well-being, performance, and for helping prevent many of the conditions they're predisposed to. You really have to get this right.
And weight maintenance is critical, you mentioned.
Extremely critical, yes.
Yeah.
Due to their predisposition for connective tissue disorders and joint issues, maintaining an appropriate healthy weight avoids placing undue stress on their musculoskeletal system. Extra weight is just extra strain.
They're often described as easy keepers, meaning they don't need a lot of calories to maintain weight.
They are, typically. They maintain weight easily, which is efficient in a way, but it also makes them more susceptible to obesity and related issues like EMS and laminitis if their diet isn't managed very carefully. It's easy to overfeed them.
How do owners monitor that effectively? Just looking isn't always accurate.
Body condition scoring, BCS, is an essential tool. Using the 9-point Heneke scale, an ideal score for a Friesian is around a 5. Not too thin, not too fat. Excessive fat accumulation, particularly the development of a hard, crusty neck or notable fat pads on the ribs or tailhead, indicates a higher score, which is strongly correlated with insulin resistance.
And again, distinguishing that fatty crest from the natural neck.
Exactly. You have to learn the difference.
The source provides a sample diet for a mature horse at maintenance. Can you walk us through that?
Sure. It suggests a mature, say, 590-kilogram horse in light or maintenance work could do well on free choice, mid-quality grass hay, plus about 30 grams, maybe 2 tablespoons of plain salt daily, and around 225 grams of a comprehensive vitamin and mineral pellet. Omneity was the example used in the material. The analysis of this sample diet shows it meets their energy and protein needs effectively for that workload without excess calories.
So hay is the base, but it needs that vitamin mineral support. They can't just live on hay.
Pretty much. Most Friesians in light work will get sufficient energy and protein just from quality hay or pasture. However, the sources emphasize that hay, even good hay, is typically deficient in essential amino acids, vitamins, and minerals needed for optimal health. So a forage-based diet needs supplementation. You need a quality vitamin and mineral product, like Omneity is described, to fill those crucial gaps and support everything from hoof health and digestion to immune function and performance.
And for the forage itself, what kind of hay is best, especially for those easy keepers?
Well, free choice forage is generally best for digestive health, allowing them to graze naturally. Consumption is typically around 2% of their body weight daily at maintenance. For easy keepers like many Friesians, mid-maturity, low-starch, low-sugar grass hay is strongly recommended. This helps manage calorie intake and blood sugar response.
Why is that low starch and sugar so important? Break that down a bit.
Okay, so that refers to the hydrolyzable carbohydrate, or HC fraction, which includes simple sugars, ESC, and starch. These carbohydrates are digested in the small intestine and rapidly absorbed, which triggers insulin release from the pancreas. Higher HC content in the diet can be problematic, especially for horses at risk for insulin resistance and EMS, like many Friesians potentially are. Now, for horses in heavier work needing more calories, higher quality forage like some alfalfa can be added for energy and protein, but you still need to be mindful of balancing calcium levels, especially in older geldings.
Right, avoid bladder stones and things.
Exactly.
And the sources point out a risk if a working Friesian suddenly stops exercising, like if they get injured.
Yes. If a regularly worked Friesian's exercise stops abruptly, they can experience rapid weight gain. It can happen fast. The risk of laminitis becomes significant, particularly if their hay's HC content is over 10%. This highlights the importance of monitoring weight and adjusting the diet promptly if activity changes. You can't keep feeding them the same amount.
What about managing the diet for Friesians who are already overweight? How do you get the weight off safely?
The source suggests strategies like limiting hay intake to around 1.5% of their ideal body weight, measured accurately by weight, not just volume. Using a slow feeder hay net to prolong consumption time and provide mental stimulation, and potentially using a grazing muzzle during turnout on pasture. It strongly recommends getting your forage analyzed for HCC content and consulting with an equine nutritionist for a tailored plan. Don't just guess.
Good advice. Any specific feeding recommendations beyond hay and supplements? Things to avoid, perhaps?
Yes. The sources advise avoiding large amounts of high-starch grains like oats, corn, or sweet feeds, especially for performance horses. Grains can increase the risk of digestive issues like colic, which can be compounded by the stress from training or competition. Friesians might be more sensitive.
What are the alternatives then if a Friesian needs more energy than hay provides for higher workloads, say for dressage or driving?
Fat supplements are a good option, or highly fermentable fiber sources like beet pulp or soy hulls. These provide calories and energy without the high starch load. Forage cubes or pellets can also be used as carriers for supplements instead of using grain if you need something to mix them with.
Okay. And on the topic of fat supplements, omega-3 fatty acids are highlighted. Why those specifically?
They're mentioned for their broad benefits supporting joint health, immune function, and skin and coat quality. The sources mention a study where omega-3 supplementation actually helped reduce skin lesions in horses with insect hypersensitivity, that sweet itch problem.
Oh, interesting connection.
Yeah. Pointing to supplements like W3 oil, which is high in the beneficial fatty acid DHA, known for helping regulate inflammation.
Makes sense. Constant access to fresh water and salt is standard for any horse, but is there a specific note for Friesians?
Just the general emphasis on providing plain loose salt, ideally about 1 to 2 ounces daily, rather than just relying on a block. Horses often don't look enough from blocks to meet their needs, and electrolytes should be supplemented as needed, of course, especially with heavy work or in hot weather.
Gotcha. And supplements beyond the base vitamin mineral pellet, like MSM or Jaugalon, are added after the core diet is balanced, not instead of.
Correct. That's key. The priority is always balancing the foundational diet first, ensuring they get adequate energy, protein, vitamins, and minerals, primarily from forage and a good balancer. Then you can consider specific supplements to address individual needs, such as MSM for supporting comfortable movement or Jaugalon for tendon ligament health and hoof circulation, as mentioned in the source material. Those are extras.
The source also points out they offer online diet evaluations and consultations with nutritionists, which seems like a great resource given how important tailored nutrition is for managing some of the breed's specific challenges.
It does. Getting tailored nutritional advice from a professional who understands these specific breed conditions can make a significant difference in helping a Friesian thrive. Probably worth looking into for owners.
Well, we've certainly covered a lot in this deep dive, from their ancient origins as war horses and elegant coach horses, all the way to their near disappearance and reintroduction. We've detailed their instantly recognizable looks and movement, explored the significant health challenges linked to their unique genetics and breeding history, and discussed the tailored care and nutrition they require to lead healthy, comfortable lives today.
It's quite a journey for one breed, isn't it? A story deeply shaped by both, natural adaptation as a landrace in their native environment, and later, intense selective breeding, specifically for those striking characteristics we admire so much today, the beauty, the elevated movement, that presence.
And considering that journey, that blend of natural evolution and focused selection for specific traits, particularly when we see the prevalence of certain health issues that are linked to their genetics and breeding history, what does that tell us about the delicate balance we face, really in any breed, between achieving desirable visual or performance characteristics and maintaining overall well-being and broad genetic diversity? It's definitely something to think about.